Nottinghamshire, and the area manager for the southern part of the county. So my interest obviously is getting to meet everybody and obviously have an opportunity to talk about, you know, some of the issues and what we can do to improve things.
Great, thank you, Hazel. Dr. Merry.
Hi, John Merry here. I was a GP up until about 18 months ago. I am now one of the team of medical examiners working at Queen's, and I guess that quite a lot of the community medical examiner stuff at Queen's is my fault. So feel free to pour scorn on me if you wish.
I'll grab my buckets. Dr. Ball.
Well, hello, hi. So it's Dr. Remy. I lead the team of medical examiners based here at Sherwood Forest. And I mean, thanks for getting us over. It'd be good to have discussions, and I hope we can thrash out a few issues. I've also got my lead medical examiner officer, Carmel West, here. So,
hi guys, yes, I'm Carmel West. I'm the lead medical examiner officer for Sherwood Forest and Mid-Knots.
Great stuff, thank you very much. Is Mandy on the call?
Hi, Mandy here, registrar from Nottingham City.
Hi, Mandy.
Hello. Hiya.
Okay. Just wondering if we've got any other colleagues. Is Yvonne on the call by any chance?
Hi, yeah, I'm the deputy lead for the MEOs at the QMC, and there's me and Joe here today.
Nice to see you.
Shall I just introduce myself? I'm Jo Frierson-Smith. I'm the bereavement services manager and the ME lead for the trust. So Yvonne won't be around for after a couple of weeks because she's having an operation. So any correspondence needs to be communicated with myself, if that's okay.
Thank you, Jo. Yeah. Good luck with the operation.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's everybody introduced today. Fantastic. How do we want to proceed? Who would like to kick us off?
Shall I say a few words about where as a medical examiner service in Nottingham, we feel we're at the moment? Maybe that would help set the ball rolling. Is that okay?
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Right. So inevitably, there were a few teething problems. From our point of view, we have thus far engaged with 64 practices in Nottingham. There are a couple of practices who don't want to engage, and we have to be absolutely clear about it. When I first introduced the service, the expectation was that this was going to be a mandatory service from the 1st of April 2023. And on the 27th of April 2023, we discovered that the government hadn't got round to passing the relevant legislation, and therefore it has to be or has to remain a voluntary service. However, it will become mandatory, we are assured, just like we were last time, on the 1st of April next year. And what we are trying to do is to just build on the work that we're currently doing and basically try and get the service running as efficiently as possible, such that when it becomes mandatory, that there isn't a sudden culture shock for GP practices. When we were initially doing it, we were introducing, and we're aware that we were introducing quite long delays into the process. We're now fairly confident that the delays that are directly down to the medical examiner service have significantly reduced, and we're clearing most ME scrutinies within 24 hours. There are still some delays with practices referring to the coroner, them being told by the coroner they need to refer to us, and so that's introducing quite a lot of delays. And we feel that there are some delays in getting the death certificates out after we have communicated with the practice. Authorising, I'm not sure that's quite the right word, but making recommendations about what can go on the certificate and who can write it. We're hoping that that will improve. Got a very happy coroner who is getting far fewer cases. We believe that we're starting to be able to add some value in terms of giving GPs confidence about who can write a death certificate and what can go on the death certificate. We'd like to think that we are also helping practices with some of the wording on the death certificate so that there's less issue with the registrar. I'm looking at Hazel's face here, and she's remaining inscrutable, but I'd like to think that we're doing that. From our point of view, the electronic referral system is working quite well, though I know some practices have had problems with that, and we're trying to work around those. We've still got quite big issues about reading the referrals that come through. We often get 100 pages of indecipherable System 1 notes, and we're going to try and work on that, but that's our problem, and not the practice's problem. Okay. But I'm very, very happy to receive any feedback, and we, you know, I would like to emphasize what we're trying to do is work with practices, and we're trying to make practices' lives easier. We really, really, truly are not trying to cause problems for practices. I'm a fairly recent GP. I know what it's like out there, and I really don't want to make anyone's life any harder.
Okay. I think, does anybody else want to come in at all?
Oh, hi. So I was just thinking, so just further to John's thing, discussion, I just thought I'll give you some feedback from our side, from Sherwood. So from the mid-knots, exactly like John said, we had obviously initially there were quite a few teething problems. There was a confusion around, when does the statutory phase start? But thankfully, that all is clearer now. And likewise, our experience is very similar to John's experience. Initially, the teething problem was settled down. I think our practices, our experience with them is entirely happy, actually. I think a lot of our practices are seeing the value of the medical examiner service. There's a layer of scrutiny. Yes, there are a few issues about timing, and I think we're collecting some information. Once we get more data at hand, I think we can address these issues. And then obviously the long-term thing, regarding how do we pick up any issues which we need to cascade to the individual practices. So that's all work in progress. But yes, we are having a very good level of engagement. Out of our 40 practices, most of them, I think 38. Almost 95% plus engagement. And yes, we're all working towards, because, from the October onwards, I think, they've said roughly in autumn, the primary legislation will be enforced. So yes, we're working towards a good place, and hopefully, we can build on this. So thank you.
Okay, I think one of the questions that we had recently was in terms of the e-referral service and whether you can actually email into an ME. So obviously there was a bit of a disparity, wasn't there, between county and city. So in terms of, are you happy to accept referrals via email? Is that still a process that can be used?
From our perspective, yes, ours comes through a mailbox. So the referrals are printed off of the System 1 and then they're emailed into our inbox for mid-knots.
Right, thank you, Carl. John?
And from the city point of view, we prefer the ERS system, but if practice, I know there's an issue where a practice has deleted a patient from their list, which then makes it so the ERS system doesn't work. We are quite happy to accept email referrals. There's a secure nhs.net email address that they can use. And if practices are having any problems whatsoever, I just encourage them to phone up the bereavement office at Queen, and we can talk them through it.
Great stuff. Thank you, John. Okay. Khaled, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just say that there's two sort of ways of doing it. There's the F12 template, and there's the Ardens for those people who choose to use Ardens. We're very similar. We kind of work together. A question for Hazel and the team, really. I know the legislation that needs to be put in place to make it mandatory, hopefully is going to, well, we've been told April next year, 2024, but a local coroner assumes or wants it yesterday or April last year, this April just gone. And even if you do individual practice, send something to the coroner, then their office sends it back to us, sort of saying you need to go through the ME service. Question for Hazel is, because the legislation is not in place, if a GP in conjunction with the family and all the rest of it, is quite happy issuing a death certificate. Would you accept that without the ME's scrutiny? Because the legislation is not in place at the moment, as far as I can see. Or would you say, no, please go through the ME?
What I would say is that we're all trying to work together because it is going to become statutory.
Yeah.
And so I think if we did receive one, then yes, I would say yes, that we would process it. However, what that's doing is creating sort of a two-tier sort of process, which when we all know that it is going to become statutory, why don't we all work together in the practice of what we know is coming? And if we can engage with those GPs who are, reluctant to do that, I just think from the bereaved families' point of view, if we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, it helps them, because the problems that we are finding is that the bereaved families are getting all sorts of mixed messages of what the processes are, who it's going to. I mean, we are getting loads of phone calls from bereaved families saying, we've been told that the documentation has been sent, but what they haven't realised is where it's been sent to. So we end up trying to find out at what part of the process, that we're in. So my encouragement, and I'm just looking for Mandy, who I know is there somewhere in the city. I strongly feel that to get this underway and practice, I would recommend that it all goes through the ME. This has come from the coroner as well. So some of you will be aware that I sent out an email out to everybody to highlight the difficulties that we're having. And at the end of the day, we're all in this to help bereaved families. And as I say, if we can start this practice now, yes, they're planning on it coming in April. There's going to be lots of other changes as well within the General Register Office. You're probably familiar with the electronic MCCD that's going to be coming in. There's also, it's been trialling at the moment where, informants will actually be able to do a part registration from home. So there's a new technology that is being built in. So that there's so many changes. And I just think this process is going to happen. So why don't we start working in that direction so that when lots of other things come in, it's not like, there's a cat being thrown amongst the pigeons. That's my view. Mandy?
No, I echo what you say, Hazel. I just think we wouldn't obviously reject any medical certificates that haven't been through that process, because we wouldn't want to cause further delays. But yeah, why wouldn't we all just work towards the same goals now and iron out all the issues?
Just on that, I mean, I totally agree with everything that you've said. It's just in exceptional circumstances, i.e. a single GP who's been involved in it and actually going on holiday tomorrow, and there's no way around the situation. If it sends a note to yourselves, by the time, well, not yourselves, sorry, the MEs, by the time they get the response back, then another GP has to get involved. It's those exceptional circumstances that I was thinking about. But I totally agree with that. Let's get on with the process. We've kind of, through the LMC, we've facilitated sort of conversations within practices, and John Merry's been here a few times, and so is Carmel, just kind of getting the process up off the ground. And so we agree, but it's just in exceptional circumstances. I think the legal framework's not there, so it should still be allowed.
What I would also just like to add, and this is a situation that we have a lot of difficulties with, is accessing a surgery. We're just given public numbers when really we just want to be able to speak to the doctor just to get something verified, and to be on a queuing system for sort of 45 minutes and saying that you're number 30 in the queue. I said, that's, it's not great. So again, I would reach out to all of you to say, the telephone numbers, your back number or whatever you want to call it, will be confidential. They're used only by registrars and they're not passed on to anybody else. But I think obviously we've got the statutory requirement where we still have to register within 5 days. Now, potentially when the ME comes in as a statutory thing, my understanding is that process of the 5 days will be slightly longer. That's not for definite, it's not been confirmed. And the other thing with regards to the quality of MCCDs that come through, I've been speaking to some surgeries, just having a chat about difficulties because some of the quality of the MCCDs, they're not complete or they're illegible or whatever. And it was very clear with one particular surgery, and it was a really good conversation, was that, you know, you've got a lot of new, doctors starting, and they haven't potentially had MCCD training, and the same with the reception staff as well. So I'm more than happy to arrange for registrars to have a session on a Teams chat or whatever to run through an MCCD, just so that we can iron out all of those issues that registrars have. You know, as I say, we're all in this together, and if I can provide you with some training, it's not a problem. We can do it.
Right, we'll take you up on that. I think it's a way forward. Emma's excited. She's written it down. No, Khaled, is anything you want to add to that at all, to Hazel?
No, I was just sort of saying maybe we as LMC could facilitate bypass numbers of the surgeries to the registrar's office. I think I totally agree. They shouldn't be waiting, 20 odd in the queue. All practices have bypass numbers, and certainly I'd support that.
You do, and also we've got quite a lot of colleagues on the call today. So for those, please consider that and maybe engage with ourselves if you want to pass on your number to Hazel. Maybe Hazel, if you want to put your number, your email address in the chat, and if they want to provide you a direct dial straight to the practice manager or deputy practice manager, that may be an easier route than sitting in the queue for a bit longer. No, agree. Carmel.
I just wanted to follow on from what Khaled's point. If there are any practices where you've got that situation where you have a doctor who's got pending leave coming up, or for a period of time, beyond the 3 or 4 days into the next week, just pick the phone up, give us a bell, we'll escalate it, and we'll make sure that it's done on that day so that the doctor can issue and you've got no unnecessary delays. Any of those were available. The team's on available from 9 till 6 most days. So just give us a bell and we'll escalate it for you to save you having that issue. Because the problem we have, and it's a conversation Hazel and I had earlier in the week, is the coroner isn't looking for referrals to go through where we know the GP is going to be back in probably middle of next week. By the time they've turned them around in the coroner's office, the GP will have been back on site. So where we can and where we've got a time frame, we'll escalate and work to you as quick as we can for you. So it's not a hurdle. We'll just get there for you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. There's a couple of questions in the chat now. I'll probably just read out if that's okay. So we've got Helen Davies at Fairfield's practice in the city. There is an Ardens ME template, and sometimes the GPs use this instead of the F12 ME template. Do you accept the Ardens ME template by any chance? Yes. Excellent. Another one from Kimberly Smith at the Windmill practice. We think the new system is working well for us as a practice, but we do get patients very worried and frantically chasing the death certificate as they are told the death needs to be registered within 5 days. Is this the case? What can we say to reassure these families when we can't give a definite turnaround time? Joanne.
So we actually speak to all of the families. And we're happy for them to phone us if they've got any questions.
Okay.
In the packs that have been sent out to all the GPs in our area, they've got the number on the pack of how the families can get in touch with us. It's the same number that we deal for all hospital deaths as well. So we're more than happy for people to phone us and we'll go through everything with them.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Hopefully that'll reassure your question, Kim. Okay, that's the questions. Is there anything at all for while we've got the specialist in the room at the same time? Any questions from practices at all? Any concerns, any worries? any kind of future developments that we need to start considering as we go forward. Is there anything from you, Emma, that we can add to this?
No, my questions have been asked and answered. Joanne, is that a new hand? Okay.
We'll go to Khaled then.
Yeah, just a request. I know, John, you've been involved with the Nottingham people and F12 and all the rest of it. I get involved with Arden's templates. So just a request to Carmen, if and when you do change any of the templates, please just let me know in advance and we can get it updated on the Arden's templates.
Will do. Thanks, Khaled.
Great stuff. Thank you, Khaled. John, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of kind of summarise where the problems from our end are coming that might actually make practices' lives a bit easier. So one of the fairly frequent scenarios we're seeing is that a practice has been informed of a death and quite rightly, under the old system, referred this to the coroner. The coroner then bounces it back to the practice saying, please refer it to the ME. And that is one of the things that introduces quite a significant delay and also creates quite a lot of work for the practice, because as we all know, the coroner's referral form is quite long to fill in and doesn't autofill from GP computer systems. And one of the things I would encourage practices to do is just refer to the MEs first, because if it needs to go to the coroner, we will handle the paperwork for you. And in quite a lot of the cases, this really does save the practice a quite considerable amount of time and a considerable amount of effort. And it would, we are here to make your lives easier. And if you just refer to the ME service first, it would make your life easier, I promise.
We had a promise. I hold you to
I just
account,
want to
John.
echo what John has said, because that is a valuable piece of work that we do on behalf of the GPs, that we can use the same document and manage that process for them so that the coroner knows fully who to contact, the next of kin have been spoken to, any concerns have been highlighted, and we can channel it, and then the coroner emails back to the GP practice as quickly as they can.
Great stuff. So horizon scanning then. So we come to 1st of April next year. It's all formalised and it's running as it should be now. What's the next steps? Where do we go from there? Will this continue as a service going forward for the future and for forever? I know things aren't forever, but will there be changes later on to providers, or will we change the messaging? Will the whole county do the same process? Can we just ensure that? So obviously I've got a few people that come forward. So should go with John first, then we'll go with Dr. Remy.
Right. So my understanding, and please forgive me, Remy and Joe, if I've got this wrong, but my understanding is that service will become properly statutory from the 1st of April. So the law will be passed sometime this autumn with a start date of the 1st of April. From that stage on, there will be a legal requirement for all deaths to undergo a medical examiner's scrutiny. Now, whether deaths will still slip through from that date onwards, it wouldn't surprise me if deaths do slip through, but legally they should all go via the medical examiner service. There just isn't a way, to the best of my knowledge, with the current paperwork, of anybody actually being able to say it has had a medical examiner scrutiny. That then brings us on to changes in the paperwork, which I understand are coming. So there is the electronic MCCD, which is coming. I think there are going to be electronic cremation forms. I believe that, for instance, questions about pacemakers are going to be going onto the MCCD with no option for I don't know to be written on there, so that whoever writes the MCCD will have to state for definite whether there's going to be a pacemaker there. I think there is thought that at some stage the cremation form will disappear, and that the job that the medical referees currently do in terms of checking cremation paperwork will pass over onto the medical examiners. Now, there was an electronic death certification solution rolled out about a year ago. I think it lasted about a week and then disappeared because it didn't work. So whether or not it's going to be any better this time, and I can see some cynically raised eyebrows about whether it works any better this time, I don't know. But that horizon scanning, that's what I see is coming down the line. I don't think medical examiners are going to disappear. Because they are taking over quite a lot of the processes that were previously carried out in terms of cremation and medical referees and stuff like that. Please feel free to correct me if I've got that wrong, anybody.
First volunteer, Joanne.
So we're just in the process of signing back up to the, probably John wouldn't know this, but we're just signing up to the pilot for electronic certification again. So I'm just waiting for them to contact us again about that. It was only came out about 2 weeks ago, I think. So it might be a few months coming yet.
Great stuff, thank you. Amy?
And I can echo Joe as well. We too have signed up to NHS Digital for the electronic MCCD as well.
Okay, so it is coming.
Yeah.
John. So it's just, I just want to add up, I just thought I'll add on to John. I absolutely agree with whatever John said. And John, you know, it is a big process because, you know, the law is in two parts, the primary legislation, the secondary legislation. The primary legislation is already in force. It's taken a long time. It's a big piece of work. And, you know, all these, I think, things have been working around that. The only thing is we couldn't enforce it because of the secondary legislation not being there. But currently, I think that's what they're planning to start from October. And then hopefully from April next year, the medical examiners are statutory. So that's going to stay. It's part of law, primary legislation. That's big. So it's going to be there forever, hopefully, fingers crossed. But yes, we will obviously improve the death certification process, you know, and obviously review of medical cases. So I think it's a big piece of work, and I'm sure, you know, this will be a big improvement for all of us. I sincerely feel that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I know
there is
also,
sorry, can I just a little bit more horizon scanning maybe? So part of the process of medical examiner scrutiny is also to look for quality improvement areas and stuff like that. Now at the moment, in terms of community scrutinies, we are just getting the process embedded, but we're I would say quite a lot further down the line with hospital scrutinies. And actually we are now starting to add some value, I think, in terms of service development, particularly in hospital scrutinies, where we can start to see patterns of things and we're able to feed into quality improvement services within the hospital. And I do think that actually there are some positive benefits in patient care starting to appear. And I do think a couple of years down the line with community scrutinies, I think we might find the same thing.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, is there any questions at all from the group? I'll go through the chat. There's been a few more bits and bobs. Dr. James Reed at the Manor Surgery, are there any medical examiner roles coming up?
I think I can answer that certainly from the point of view of Queen's. There are always medical examiner roles coming up. As you can see from my grey hair, I'm at the end of my medical career, and most of the medical examiners are coming towards the end of their medical careers. And so there will be a significant amount of turnover, and certainly anybody who's interested, if they want to come down to Queen's, particularly on a Tuesday morning, and sit in with me, I can show them what it's all about. And I would encourage anyone to do that. Just email me, john.merry@nhs.net, and I can arrange that for you.
And I echo that for SFH, Monday to Friday, apart from Wednesday, because Remy's not here on a Wednesday. But please give us a bell, drop in, send us an email. We would welcome any support from our GP colleagues.
Right. We'll add that in our e-update, which will go out in the next week or so anyways, to the links. But if you've got time to put your email addresses, Carl or John, into the chat, that'll be fantastic for maybe James Reed. Your hand is up, Khaled.
Yeah, Just one final point, John and Carmel. If in future there's going to be changes, slight amendments, can we do, please, a plea, do it across the patch? We've got one Nottinghamshire coroner, we've got one ICB. What we don't want is a different system for Nottingham, a different system for Sherwood Forest, which kind of was the initial process or thought process, and it caused a lot of grief and angst.
I agree with you, Khalid. We didn't feel the angst at this end because I had really good engagement from our colleagues across Mid-Nots. And we had set off on a different pathway before we'd got the electronic referral system in place from System 1. So yes, and I think the other thing we'll look at is probably review. I've seen a couple of variations of the form coming through, and I think if we just pull the best bits of everything and formalise one document over the next coming months with what we need ultimately altogether, especially the question regarding, from a GP point of view, when the patient was last seen by a GP within the practice, that would help enormously engage in the time frame, especially when we're looking at onward referrals through to the coroner for that not seen within, a reasonable time frame for a referral. But yes, I agree, and I will aim to support you all with that, no problem.
Yeah, I would echo that from Queen's. We do need to work better together between the two services, I think.
Happy, Khalid?
Yep.
Excellent. Hazel, you mentioned earlier about the MCCD, and also you said about referrals, and there was information, maybe missing, or you need to contact a practice. So is there like an exemplar kind of guide, or that we could maybe promote to practices?
Well, I can do that for you. I mean, what we've been doing is, as and when we get, MCCDs that come through that we have to send back, we document the surgery. So when we get a number of, where something's happening quite regularly, then, I have started to contact surgeries and to say, look, this seems to, keep happening.
Right.
Is there any way that we can help you? So really, to reiterate what I've said before, the whole point is to help everybody. And most of all, bereaved families. So, I've given my email address if you would like to be involved in as a Teams training, or I can send you an example of MCCDs, because I don't think it's just, it's not just the GPs. I think also if the reception staff are also trained to what to look for, because you're all busy, you're trying to see as many people as possible. But I think if we can also get the managers, reception staff understanding what it should look like before you send it through, because again, that then adds a delay, because then we've got to come back to you. So it's just, as I say, it's just about helping each other. And, I have got staff who are willing to support you, a half-hour session, if that. We can just be part of one of your, if you have your weekly or monthly training sessions or whatever, we're more than happy to come along and just do a session on it, and then you can ask questions. Because sometimes, the most obvious things, can get missed. So it's about opening that communication up. And I think the opportunity today, with us all being here, I think is brilliant. I would like to happen more, so that, when you have got issues, and when if you have issues with the registration team, if things have been rejected and why, because obviously we're working to the GRO handbook, and so we have things that we have to adhere to. But I think if we can get that communication better, where we're talking, and I've got a great relationship with Remy and Carmel. I go to Kingsmill once a month, and we talk about problems, up and coming issues, and it's great. The communication is really good, so I encourage it.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think maybe for the future then, if you're more than welcome to come back to another one of these sessions, if we can try and coordinate that in the future before we go into April, and then just see whether there's any trends that have been identified during the next couple of months, and maybe following from April as well as to the changes that have been, statutory, and maybe any outcomes from that. I think would be really useful.
Sorry, can I just add into that as well, Stuart? I'm actually on the national panel for registration, so I'm involved in the new death birth processes, which is all going digital. So I do think to have these forums is really good, because there are going to be changes that are going to be coming through. And if we're all in communication on a, you know, a reasonably frequent basis, then I'll be able to update you as to where we are from the General Register Office side as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that'd be really useful. Okay, going into the chat again. So obviously there was jobs. Joanne's put in there the family line for South Notts. Okay, Arden's templates have been electronic cremations for a few years, and Debbie Swain at Lombard in Newark and Sherwood would like training, please. And somebody's also mentioned about maybe tagging on the end of a PLT sessions as well. So that'll be really useful, and then you'll get a wider range of practices that attend those. Okay, final call for questions really for the team that are here today from practices. Any questions? Any concerns? Any worries? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much again. Thank you for your time. It's been lovely seeing you all. Good luck with the operation next week, Yvonne, or whenever it is. So take care. And thank you, John, as well, because I know over the last couple of months you've been really helpful, and you know, lovely to see you come into these forums really and present to practices, because it's been really useful. But please stay in touch. Hopefully we will all speak to you very soon. And any questions, please feel free to contact the team here, because obviously John's put his contact details in the chat, and you know, it's lovely to see that colleagues always wishing, you know, willing to take calls from practices and questions. So once again, thank you very much. So that concludes today's Practice Weekly briefing. Next week for practices, we will